It's been said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. For over 50 years, SAIC has embraced the unknown, mission-focused to build a tomorrow that works for everyone. Bold transformations, digital ingenuity, the explosive, thrillingly awesome power of tech. So no matter what the future holds, we're ready to bring on tomorrow.
My little cryptid, and this isn't scripted. I wanna equip you and use against my enemies, yeah. You see, you wanted to save you, and then learn how to raise you. But I forget you from the wilderness.
Eamon, I think it's that time again where I have a poem for us.
Yeah, go on. Give me the poem.
Well, you might remember this. This happened to us when we were in North America. I don't know. Did you remember?
Oh yeah, no, I remember when you and me went to North America. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, well,
Sure, it wasn't Wales, yeah.
no, it was North America. And here's the poem.
Yeah, please.
Walking through the woods, Eamon and I, when all of a sudden we see a guy. Hello, hello, you two. My name is Running Water. A First Nation person who was
Okay,
also
that's good.
a Skinwalker. Right. Eamon begins to laugh and says, "You guys are not real. I've seen enough. I don't want your spiel." Running Water laughs too and says, "Take a look in my pouch. This stuff will make you jump off your couch." Oh Lord, I have the giggles. Eamon looks in and shouts, "What the fuck? It's dried foreskin." It's at this time Running Water begins to grin. Oh fuck. Oh Lordy. He transforms into a giant penis and slaps Eamon silly. Imagine that, to get beaten by a willy.
A Willy.
Hell, I couldn't even get through that.
Oh,
Jesus.
that was your dumbest word. I think when you rhymed, what was it, sky with guy? What did you rhyme with guy?
No, it was walking through the woods, Eamon and I, when all of a sudden...
You with guy. Yeah, I was like, this is going to be a good one. He's upped his game. Rhyming I with guy, who would have thought that?
It's next level stuff, but yeah, I lost it there completely.
God. Right, well look. And Running Water was very funny. That was good. I like that one. Okay, I actually remember that. I remember, now that you're talking about it, I remember that time we went to North America.
Oh, yeah.
A Navajo reservation, I believe.
Yeah, I was getting worried there when you said you didn't remember it anymore.
I know,
like,
I'm just getting older. I'm getting older.
Okay, right.
So I'm going to try to do some slam poetry, which I believe is some sort of improv poetry. And you're not allowed to clap. I know you probably want it because it's going to be fucking spellbinding, but you have to like click your fingers like that. Yeah, you got it? Okay. Right, so we're going to do the slam poetry. Bobby, Rob, Bob, Bobbert, and me going down into the Navajo region.
Is that it?
No, I'm not. That's part of it. It's like the pause is part of slam poetry.
Okay.
Tremulently trespassing onto a tribe from the First Nations.
Oh.
But we're just talking about our PlayStations. That's the crowd just fucking being like, "Oh, no, he didn't."
Nations and PlayStations is good.
PlayStations. When all of a sudden, out of the tree, I see my destiny, and her name is Bambi, the deer. I say, "I knew you from Disney." She said, "Get away from me." And she starts to contort as I thought she ought to have bought our resort. What we were selling, ain't no telling how it's gonna come. I feel like fucking Magellan up in it. Bambi turns into one fine-ass filly. She says, "Robbie, let me see that willy." And Rob says, "Sorry, lady, I'm a little bit shy."
Oh.
And I should let you know, the doctor says I got a problem with my pee-pee. It's macro. It's got no CP. So she says, "Okay, that's fine. Ginger boy, I guess you're all mine. No, that was slam poetry. Slam poetry.
That was wow. That was really impressive, and you were able to hold your composure as well, unlike me, who couldn't.
Yours was very funny. That Skinwalker turned into a giant penis, and that we haven't covered that in this episode, but I'm sort of upset that we haven't.
I really enjoyed that. I did running water as a First Nation name. To be honest,
I think like one of two things is going to happen here, right? Either you're gonna get like either the Navajo tribe are going to get in touch with you and be like, well, listen, we're trying to get someone to write a sitcom about Native, a sort of borderline racist sitcom about Native American stereotypes, where we want running water to be the star, and that's obviously your intellectual property now, or they're probably going to send a skinwalker to your house tonight to tear you apart. First one's better.
Well, put it this way, right? Well, if he's running water, I'm Irish water. Oh,
you do a lot more damage than he will. So
yeah. I'll charge him extortionately for using his taps.
And no matter where you ring him, he'll be like, "No, sorry, that's actually tenant responsibility. That's nothing to do with the water lines." You're like, it's in the middle of the fucking road. They're like, yeah, no, that's number 3 fucking Mayfield Meadows. Now that's them. They have to sort that out.
My thing is that I show up places with a crowd of people with placards throwing rocks at me, so like it kind of creates destabilization in the area. So I'll show up and a bunch of Irish water protesters will come behind me, and then I leave really quickly. I run out through the teepees, and the lads all hang around and fight the Navajo, and that'd actually be a really cool battle, don't you think?
I think that would be a good battle. Yeah, you could have. Do you know what would be a cool like dream fight?
What?
I think they used to do something. There used to be something on the History Channel, and it was like a ninja versus a samurai, or like a person from the Navajo tribe fights a fucking Templar and shit like that. Did you ever see that TV show?
Yeah, I did do. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. I don't know
I think
the
like
name of it, though.
I think you could have a cool like Celts versus Skinwalkers or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crossover.
Yeah, you could do. What's up, everyone? This is Rob here with Monster Fuzz, and with me is
It's your boy Emer.
Emer.
Emer, yeah. I'm
Eczema.
I'm getting E to the Zima. That's me. It's your boy Exhibit. We're gonna put 2 PlayStation 2s and a 10-inch monitor up in this beat.
Why does in America they say eczema, don't they? And here we say eczema.
Eczema. Yeah, they say vitamins in America, and we say vitamins.
I met my granddad says vitamins.
Vitamins.
Yeah,
I'd say he's the fucking funniest lad down in the parish, is he?
Yeah, vitamins is a good one. No, but he doesn't even mean it in a funny way. Like he just says,
alright, he's just
vitamins.
Cracked out lad.
Just like not vitamins. Yeah, guys, we're Monster Fuzz Podcast. Please check us out on all social media at Monster Fuzz Pod on Twitter, at Monster Fuzz Podcast on everything else. Oh, and we have a Patreon now, which is www.patreon.com/monsterfuzz, and become a patron. We've got all sorts of fun shit for patrons now. We have private Discord. We have custom songs by Eamon. We have custom poems by me, which I actually haven't added to a tier yet, and I need to do that. We have loads of stuff behind the scenes info, show notes, blog posts about each episode, all of this good stuff, and it's right over there. Tiers start at 350 Loch Ness Monster, finish up at Prince Philip at 30 Squids. And thanks very much for checking all that stuff out, guys. And quickly moving on, we're out of the intro, we're getting out of there, and we are going to North America, Eamon. And what are we doing in North America?
We are on the hunt for the Skinwalker. So the Skinwalker, this episode is about the Wicked Witch of the West, or more specifically, the Navajo Wicked Witch of the Southwest. Just a little bit of Wizard of Oz humor there, a little bit of interplay with the Wizard of Oz. Follow the Yellow Brick Road, midgets hanging from trees, all that kind of stuff. So, so as we see here, Rob, if you want to describe to the peoples the depiction of a Skinwalker.
Yes, absolutely, indeed. It is basically a person, so essentially a person, and has sort of fur on their calves. They've got like dog feet, almost sort of werewolf feet. They've got werewolf claws. They have an animal pelt on their head. In the case of the skinwalker from my poem that me and Eamon met, it was a foreskin pelt.
It was like a hoodie, kind of.
Yeah,
A mole.
it was like one of them turtlenecks, you know. And so that's basically what they look like. Just think of imagine you're like Native American First Nation with a more wolf-like sort of demeanor, like that's pretty much
and
it.
It's like a Skyrim character that you just covered in pelts rather than getting him any armor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you want to role play, you can do that.
Yeah. Now, what's pretty cool is if we cycle down, there's actually a picture here of 5 different skinwalkers, and they kind of look like Slipknot or something like that, or the Predator.
Yeah, they look like Slipknot. And for everyone that's listening, if you want to head on over to our Instagram, we will include the pictures from our show notes every time from now on, and also on our Patreon blog posts, I will include the same pictures too. So if you want a visual aid, you know where to go, guys. So Slipknot are there for you.
The Slipknot are there. It's pretty cool. It's actually, they do look like a sort of an industrial metal band with different sort of animal motifs.
If you Photoshop, like if you put the Slipknot band logo on that and put it up on Spotify, no one would like even question it, which is the hilarious part.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That would absolutely be true. Let me ask you this. Where did you first hear the term skinwalker?
Well, honestly, to what I could remember, not really very often, unless it's been in something that I don't really remember. But I think that Skinwalker was a term that I had sort of heard from like Skinwalker Ranch, from doing notes on Wendigo, things like that. It's not really, it hasn't been in my head very long. I think it might be in yours longer.
Yeah. So weirdly enough, the first time I heard it, remember the band Tomahawk?
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So their third album, I believe, is called Anonymous, and so they're kind of a sort of a weird alternative metal,
experimental,
like a little bit experimental. Like Mike Patton is in them, so you know it's going to be a bit strange and fantastic. But their third album, so the first 2 albums are like, you know, like these sort of, let's call them metal albums. The third album is an album called Anonymous, and it's like a homage to the Native Americans in America. And they have one song, and I think it's called Skinwalker, and it's fucking cool. It has this like industrial fucking drum on it, and all this like cool soundscapes and everything, and it's just Mike Patton in the background just going, Skinwalker, 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 you are Skinwalker, Skinwalker, you bababoo, bababoo, and it's like all fucking crazy. But it's definitely, if you can get your hands on that album and pick it up, it's fucking mental, but it's fantastic.
Or alternatively, you can live stream the album, because Eamon lives in Wooden Sandals Toga land, where he goes around and rummages for CDs through like bins and stuff like that. But you can actually go and stream it online.
What? What do you mean online? Like
so
through telephone cable?
So there's a thing that you go on called the internet, and you actually, believe it or not, it sounds kind of weird, but you surf when you go on the internet. So
no, like I use a net to catch the wild mackerel and pike in the canal, but I think you might be confused here.
No. Well, first off, we know that you hunt with a wooden sandal. You throw it like a boomerang, and you throw
it always comes back.
You throw it at the fish in the water, and it somehow comes back, and you catch it. But
yeah, I'm 0 for 2.
But on the internet, music now is free, and you just go onto Spotify and you type in Tomahawk, and they probably are on Spotify, I would imagine. But maybe not.
Just to break character for a second, they definitely are on Spotify, and I listen to them regularly. Now going back into Eamon from the wilderness, who doesn't know his arse from the hole in the ground.
So what would he do then if he was like, if somehow this Eamon who is listening to us on Spotify can't find things on Spotify? How would you find? Yeah, how would you find it?
What I would do,
yes,
is I would probably, so earlier today, for example, one of the people from a neighboring tribe, where obviously there's a bit of violence and a bit of aggro between us, you know, one's Khabib, one's McGregor, it's that kind of a thing, you know.
Okay.
And so we're trying to kind of, you know, get some peace treaties going. So I gave a fella a copy of Final Fantasy VII from PlayStation 1, you know, because he'd never played it. He'd only played the remake because obviously, you know, we're living in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
But he managed to get the remake because it was good. Amazon wound up. They came actually ahead of time, would you believe, because of Corona, which was great. That was the best thing about Corona. And so, yeah, we did that. And so he gave me in return, he gave me a plushy teddy of a raccoon that I think he had probably used to wipe his arse several times because there wasn't else. It was a realistic smell of it. But that's what I would barter. Or if you like, you know, like everyone's like, oh, I'd love to hear a new song. It's like, make your own song. Just all you need to do is bang on a tree and just start making noise with your face, and it's steady.
Ladysmith Black Mambaza. You listened to them?
Huh? I haven't.
Have you not? You never listened to Ladysmith Black Mambaza?
I haven't.
Okay, well, everyone here, listen to them. They're an African tribe. It's like African tribe music.
Like Fela Kuti and stuff like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, excellent. Right, well, I'll tell you what. Do you, now that we've sort of fucking bored everyone in the first 10 minutes of the podcast, do you want to go ahead and tell these people what the Skinwalkers are?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So Skinwalkers are a black witch in First Nations culture, specifically the Navajo. In the Navajo vernacular, it is called Yinaldlushi, and is described as, thanks man, as a harmful witch said to have the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The term is never used for Navajo healers, but relegated to the dark sorcerers of the Native American outback. The term Yinaldlushi translates roughly as, with it, he goes on all fours. It is worth noting that the Skinwalker is just one of several witches in Navajo culture. However, the Skinwalker is considered the most volatile and dangerous. Eamon, we've got plenty of definitions here of Navajo spookiness to impart on people here. So do you want to give us a rundown?
Yeah, so the first one we have is Gal, and that's a protection against evil or witchery. Ghost, an evil spirit or witch of the dead. Medicine man, one who performs religious ceremonials or sings. Navajo is a member or members of the Navajo Indian tribe. Navajo, so it's Navajo or Navaho, so it's just different spellings. So sing or singing, that's Navajo religious ceremony. So if you were singing, you would be at this ceremony. If you were a singer, you're kind of used interchangeably with the medicine man. So the singer is kind of the medicine, the healer. Sorcery is a phenomena that the Navajo called inzid. So that's basically to perform magic. Right. A sucker, Rob Billington is all it says. No, a sucker is one. I got him. Gonna need some burn cream. So a sucker is one who performs the sucking cure for wizardry, and sucking is a special cure for wizardry again. So the one who performs it and the act itself. I have found myself that sucking can help heal a lot of problems that you might feel.
Right.
Yeah, you just give it an old suck. Better in the morning.
Interesting.
Now I'd say sucker here, to be fair, is actually coming from to offer succor, which I think it's SOUCCER, which basically means someone who needs help or to give help.
Right.
But I'd say that's where it's actually coming from. Where animals are witches roaming in the skins of other animals, usually a wolf or coyote. So we're kind of saying, is this our skinwalker? There's a differentiation between a were animal and a skinwalker, you know? Which is like the skinwalker. We'll get to it in a minute, but it's kind of saying why they're skinwalkers, what they practice. A witch, which is basically one who practices witchery, and that's only when it's capitalized. When it's not capitalized, it refers to those who practice any of the four principal techniques of witchcraft. Right. And the four witchcraft techniques are witchery, sorcery, wizardry, and frenzy witchcraft.
Frenzy witchcraft sounds really cool, to be quite honest with you.
It does. It kind of sounds like you know, that Dungeons and Dragons game where like you're chaotic good, chaotic evil, and all those different personality types. Yeah. So yeah, witchery, the Navajo call it anti-wizardry. The Navajo call it adagas, and wolfman is a common colloquial term for witch. So where animals, wolfman. That this connection with the animal world is a witch, someone who performs witchery, someone who's involved in sorcery. The Skinwalker itself, though, is a kind of an offshot of this. So
Right.
that the connection with wolves and were animals is part of the culture. But we'll see why it is there's a differentiation with the Skinwalker in a little bit.
Yeah.
But before we do, perhaps you want to delve into the origin of the Navajo and the witchcraft. So this is kind of like Genesis of the First Nations Bible, if you like.
Yeah. So, yeah, witchcraft seems to be fairly intertwined and interwoven in with like Navajo culture and their practices and stuff like that. So here, this will just sort of shed a bit of light on it and sort of why they believe in it. And it's really cool stuff and very interesting. So before the creation of the Navajo as Earth's surface people or mortals, the holy people who were eventually responsible for the creation of the Navajo lived under the earth. So yeah, these holy people were chilling under the crust of the earth. They gradually moved from one underworld to another until they eventually made their way into the world. Their coming into this world is called the Emergence by the Navajo. The Navajo believed that first man was the originator of witchcraft. First man and first woman existed from the beginning of the lowest of the underworlds. So think of like the native Adam and Eve, I suppose, yeah?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely similarities. They were both husband and wife and brother and sister and possessed many human as well as many godlike traits. It was their responsibility from the beginning to make conditions suitable for the Navajo to live as Earth surface people. So, yeah, so they were essentially seeding the planet, much like our God, I suppose, to make it suitable.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's some interesting stuff here. I don't know if you ever saw much about the Hopi Indians.
No, but I do know that there is an episode of those conspiracy guys that you're on that people should listen to if they want to further their knowledge on them, right?
Oh, fuck yeah, there is an all. Sorry, I actually completely forgot about that. I was saying to you earlier. Yeah, I sent to Gordo, I was chatting to him earlier. I was like, man, I don't even remember recording this. Like, it's just totally gone from my memory. I know it's me and Claire on it, but I have no recollection.
If you want some behind the scenes information, like I said to Eamon last week or something, I was like, oh yeah, the Hopi Indian episode is up and all. And he was like, Eamon was like, oh yeah, that's must go. I must check that out. And I was like, well, you were on it. I was like, was I on it? I was like, yeah. And you still don't remember you're on it, so it's kind of funny.
That's what happens when you have a wormwood brain, ladies and gentlemen.
In your credit, though, it was recorded a fucking long time ago.
I think it was at least 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, look, come on. But anyway, back to the Hopi Indians. Do you recommend people check that out for further watching of this?
Yeah. So the Hopi, and there's a lot of stuff about the Hopi prophecies and stuff about. I think again, I can't really remember because I don't even remember fucking recording it. But I think it might have tied in with Nibiru, like Planet X. If you've ever heard of that, 10,000 year.
And I think there's a little bit of Hollow Earth theory in it as well, maybe.
Yeah, there's some Hollow Earth as well. It's one of the conspiracy guys ones. So it's like fucking 10,000 hours long. Right. And so like if you're looking for a long deep delve into Native American culture and probably I don't think it really touches on the Skinwalker stuff we're talking about here, but probably the other elements of it are all over it. So worth a spin if you want to check it out.
Yes. So if you've got hawk feathers in your hair and stuff now after listening to this episode, definitely go to the Hopi stuff. But in spite of this, they were largely responsible for most of the disasters that occurred in the underworlds. So that's these two, Adam and Eve, as we'll call. We won't call them Adam and Eve actually to avoid offense.
First man and first woman, yeah.
The underworlds were filled with confusion, error, uncertainty, evil, and death. Witchcraft first originated and practiced by first man and later practiced by first woman, coyote, badger, ant people, and numerous others. Oh, all the cryptids are coming at us.
They're all coming out.
Was the cause of many of these underworld problems. Witchcraft was carried with the holy people in their upward migration through the lower worlds toward the earth. For the Navajo people, witchcraft is just another part of their spirituality and one of the ways of their lives. As such, witchcraft has long been part of their culture, history, and tradition. Witches exist alongside humans and are not supernaturals. So, interestingly, again, Eamon, much like to harken back to our Tikbalang episode.
Tikbalang.
it's got some similarities, wouldn't you say, with some aspects of that type of thing?
Yeah, I suppose the kind of animism and the spirit in things. Yeah, yeah. So I think witchcraft and again, look, I'm no expert on Native American history. So if anybody is and they're listening to this and they're rolling their eyes and shouting "what a prick" at the computer, or as we listen to them out in my jungle,
Abacus.
the abacus, the sound abacus, the song abacus. So yeah, it seems as if, you know, they exist alongside them. And again, I think as well that I'm not sure if it's the Navajo, but there's certainly Indian tribes that recognized many genders instead of just the binary man or woman way back then. So they'd have, again, I'm talking a little bit out of school here, but I think they would have like people even who dressed as, well, I suppose part of the dressing as wolves and stuff like that is maybe part of it. But I think they did recognize 5 genders or something like that.
Right,
and they had maybe men who dressed as women and stuff like that. But I just don't know too much about it. But definitely they had multiple genders before, you know, that sort of was, I don't want to say popularized, but before it featured a lot more here in the West, relatively recently, I suppose.
Interesting parallels between, you know, witchcraft and paganism and things like that, and how obviously these cultures were very far apart geographically, but they seem to share some similarities in some of their practices and things like that. So that's quite
I think so. I think, again, you know, the way they talk about that thing where, you know, one ape at one certain place in the world learns how to like fish with a spear, and then it happens at somewhere else at the same time, and all this sort of stuff. I suppose part of this gets into the idea of archetypes, the cultural consciousness. You can link a lot of this into the kind of stuff that Carl Jung would have talked about. Certainly some of the archetypes that Jordan Peterson would talk about as well. So here we're after talking about Jordan Peterson and fucking non-binary gender culture in the first little bit of this episode. So this is getting sort of uncomfortable, and for me at the moment, I don't know what way people think we're going, but I'm just linking it in with some of the other archetypes, mythos, animism, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Skinwalkers, or sorry, not Skinwalkers, Navajos were woke, and they were very, obviously a very open culture, it sounds like, anyway. But Eamon, you have a really cool little anecdote down here, a little story that comes from old Navajo times, perhaps.
Yeah. So there's an old Navajo story, and actually, I know one of the patrons asked us in the last episode, you know, what's their favorite folklore story, and this actually is probably mine. I just didn't think about it when we were talking about it.
I
then,
like
you
this
know,
one too. It's actually really cool.
It's very good. Yeah. So there's an old Navajo story. At least I think it's Navajo. It could be Cherokee or something like that. So apologies if I've messed up there. But it's either a grandfather or a grandson, or a grandmother and granddaughter. So sitting by the fire. And basically the elder says to the child that there are 2 wolves fighting inside him. And the child kind of just looks at him for a second. He's like, what? And the grandparent goes on to say that there's a good wolf and a bad wolf. And he says only one of the wolves can win, you know? So the boy thinks on it for a while. They're kind of sitting by a fire, just the 2 of them. And the young boy says, well, which wolf wins? And then the grandparent replies, whichever one you feed. So it's the idea of, I suppose it's a bit of an idea that we'd have in lots of cultures. You've got sin and piousness and all that sort of stuff. But the way they feel it, and the way that this culture has a kinship with the wolf, because like the wolves, I think, are very like humans in terms of they're intelligent animals. They isolate, but they also need the pack, which I think is true for an awful lot of people. We don't want to be around people all the time, but we're also recognizing that we do need the pack to be around us, and we need to know our social role in the pack as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, not everybody can be the king or anything like that, you know, that sort of way.
Yeah, not to mention as well, like, you know, even back then, they would have been like the cool version of our pet dogs. Like, we would have had some dumbass fucking pug sitting by the fire, and there was like 24 wolves roaming around outside the campfire waiting to eat one of us. And we would have definitely sort of revered them and respected them as well. And I think, I think that the wolf obviously has lived alongside man since forever, and in a lot of ways would have hunted in the same style. Man hunted in pack. So I think, you know, because this whole, sometimes people think of man hunting and they think of a dude sitting in the woods with a rifle or up in a stand in the trees, which that's fine. But that's not how our ancestors did it. Most of
No,
our
no.
ancestors, from my research at least, and the things that we've driven to extinction, were slow moving prey that didn't really have natural evolution to be able to deal with man, basically. So
Yeah, yeah.
there's some cool cryptid stories coming up, but it looks like if you go back and listen to the Pleistocene episode, I talk about a bird called the Jenny Ornis, which was a giant bird that was over 9 foot or something. It was crazy tall, and basically man wiped it out. And you might wonder, like, how did man wipe out such a bird? But the answer is that men arrived after these birds had spent their whole life evolving to a certain type of prey, which would have been more than likely megalania. So when
Mm.
man came along, they didn't actually have any response to them. So it was
Yeah.
actually quite an easy job for man to hunt them. They probably didn't fear them. They were big targets. It was quite easy. And then in the same episode, we talk about how man hunted the Megatherium, the giant sloth, and it was this whole thing where a pack hunted and killed this Megatherium. So yeah, we share a lot of similarities with the wolf, and especially back then we would have. And they also have a pack hierarchy, which we have as well,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And maybe, as we talked about a lot in this show before, recognizing and maybe respecting the wildness in yourself and seeing that mirrored back in wolves or different kind of predatory animals like that. But basically, the reason I talk about this, I'll kind of get around to it again in a bit of a long way of this idea of the good and bad. But the Navajo believe that there are places that are both good and evil, and where basically good and evil powers exist. And again, we would have talked about these before. We talk of them as liminal zones or liminal areas. Skinwalker Ranch, for example, shout out to Skinwalker Ranch. This is the Skinwalker. We'll definitely do a show or multiple shows
absolutely.
on Skinwalker Ranch. So that could be one of those places where you see lots of this UFO activity, lots of spooks, lots of ghosts, lots of cryptids, all this sort of weird stuff going on there. It's a zone where maybe the veil between our reality and the other realities or reality is very thin. And basically in these areas, the powers can be harnessed for either good or evil. So those who practice Navajo dark witchcraft seek to direct the spiritual forces to cause harm or misfortune to others. And this type of Navajo witchcraft is called the witchery way. It basically uses human corpses in various ways, such as tools from the bones, concoctions that are used to curse, harm, or kill intended victims. And the knowledge of these powers is basically passed down the generations. So I suppose what I'm saying there is the one you feed is at a high level. It's just you do the right thing, you do the wrong thing. And maybe at a more specific level, because I don't know exactly how this parable was meant to be, could it have been potentially a way of advising against going down the path of becoming a skinwalker, the witchery way, the bad way. So yeah, it's worth thinking about that, and the kind of that idea between good and bad, good wolves, bad wolves, sin, piousness, good karma, bad karma. It exists everywhere. It's
an interesting thing, and the cool thing about it is that it seems like the larger culture that includes, the Pueblo people, the Apaches, the Hopi, which you've forgotten everything about.
Yeah, don't remember anything about them. How do you spell it?
The Ute, and other.
I think it's Utes. The Utes.
And other groups have also have their own versions of the Skinwalker, but each includes a malevolent witch, which is capable of transforming itself into an animal. So all of them have their own version, right?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And that's what we're talking with the good wolf, bad wolf, the Jedi, the Sith, all that. So the concept of feeding this wolf is interesting as you make that link between, if you feed, not too dissimilar, I suppose, to Anakin from Star Wars.
Yeah.
So like he starts out, he's good, he's a child, he's sort of malleable, let's say, and he just feeds that badness more and more and more, feels the rage, feels anger, feels envy, feels jealousy, and then transgresses at the point where he kills all the younglings, which is something that you can't come back for. So if we mirror that with say the Wendigo, where the transgression is, to cannibalize, which becomes a physical manifestation then of the transgression itself. So basically, when you go past a certain point, you become the skinwalker, you become the Wendigo, you become something. You can't go back to society. I think it's a way of saying there are some things that our society can forgive, and there are other things that our society will basically never let you return from.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's an interesting one. Anakin Skywalker went down the path so bad that he became a woeful actor. That's what happened to him. The powers of the Navajo turned him into a rubbish actor.
I don't actually think it was killing the children was like the second worst thing he did. I think the first worst thing was just like his faces were the same, no matter what the emotion was. I know that's unfair. Like I don't think the kid, I don't know about acting. I don't know how to act. I feel bad for calling out some fucking Hollywood guy.
So let's just put it that way. I don't notice. Do you think I'm noticing actors? Do you think I'm watching films and going, great performance? I only notice when it's bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. You notice when you're not invested, and especially when you love Star Wars.
Yeah, I love Star Wars.
That was probably quite upsetting.
It's my favorite shit, and like. It's look, he's not the worst, but it's just a fairly wooden performance, I mean, look, he's portraying someone that turns into fucking Darth Vader, which is another wooden character. I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you. This is a very wooden type of character. So I mean, what do you do on the flip side of it? Maybe he was cast because of that, but anyway, we digress. But the Star Wars mythos, sometimes these witches are evolved from living their lives as respected healers or spiritual guides who later choose to use their powers for evil. Though they can be either male or female, they're more often male. They walk freely among the tribe during the day and secretly transform under the cover of night. So they generally slip off and turn then.
So that seems to be the case until maybe they're found out. So you don't see them transform. Right. They just transform. Now, the next part, which I'll let you share with the listeners, is all about the ritual that it takes to become a skinwalker. So you don't just go from, buying a pint of milk and a bag of potato down in the shops one night to turning into a fucking wolf the next night. So there's a process, if you like.
Yeah, one does not turn into a skinwalker very
One does
easily.
not simply turn into a skinwalker.
Yes. So here's the ritual, guys. In order to become a skinwalker, he or she must be initiated by a secret society that requires the evilest of deeds. So kind of like when you join like the Avon catalog or something, when you're going around to post that through doors, you have to join a secret society with like pyramid scheme. The killing
is that the one that they just drop to your door and you like
yeah. That's like a secret society. No one knows what goes on behind it or anything. It's another pyramid scheme. Basically, any of those are secret societies. The killing of a close family member, most often a sibling. So to really get in, you have to kill a family member. Basically, that's
Cain and Abel. Like who's one of the worst villains of the Bible after Satan is Cain, who kills his brother because he thinks that God isn't giving him his just desserts. Again, that's a big archetype of the transgression if you don't work hard enough, so
you turn on a sibling. I suppose as well, I don't know about back then, but fights with siblings can be intense. So I wonder, was that a way to sort of really make sure that people weren't fucking killing each other? Because there's been times in my life where I could have probably killed my siblings. So I'm wondering, is it a way to just sort of, I don't know, keep you from doing that, basically? You have an annoying brother or whatever, and you're like, right, okay, I'm not a skinwalker, I'm not going to do this,
Yeah.
So that could be it. That could be the idea behind it. After this task has been completed, once you kill your brother or sister or parents or whatever, the individual then acquires supernatural powers, which gives them the ability to shapeshift into animals. So yeah, we at Monster Fuzz don't condone killing your family members to turn into a skinwalker, by the way.
We wouldn't be into it. Don't do it.
If the wrong person listens to this, they might take it literally. But
I think the other problem is going to be if you hate your brother and you wind up killing them, the irony might be that you can't turn into a skinwalker and now you're just going to jail for 25 years. So maybe just don't do that. Maybe I don't know. Do find something else that makes you happy. Don't end lives.
Yeah. Most often they're seen in the form of coyotes or coyotes, as they say in America, wolves, foxes, cougars, dogs, and bears, but could take the shape of any animal. So really, yeah, it's up to yourself what animal you want to be. What animal would you be, Eamon?
I would. I like the idea of being a fox or a wolf.
There's a big difference there now. If you're being a fox, like you're kind of shit. Like you're probably just gonna get run over on the fucking M50.
Well, I don't want to be an urban fox. I'd be a fox that frolics in meadows.
You're gonna get stuck in a fucking wheelie bin somewhere. Imagine.
Yeah, but a wolf in Ireland is probably just fucking stuck in the Phoenix Park.
Imagine you get like, you turn into a fox and you're like, oh, this is awesome, but like your animalistic drive brings you to like a wheelie bin and you just get stuck upside down in it. And you're like, this is dirt.
Yeah, you're like, this is life now, just upside down in this wheelie bin.
Yeah.
Hoping I can get out before they throw me into the iron jaws of death in the back of the fucking dustbin. Or the dustbin van. Dustbin van? The dustbin van.
The foxes, by the way, are really cool, so I'm not trying to diss foxes, but they're kind of like fairly low on the scale of things. Like for me,
yeah, you're not going to be an apex predator. Yeah, that's true.
I'd want to be like a Hast's eagle. They're like a big badass eagle that mark everything, or at least used to. I think they're extinct now, but they used to eat like like Jenny Ornis and things like that. They used to eat them. They used to like fly out of the sky and be like, yeah, I'm fucking up this giant ostrich. So
you don't have any hands though. Would you not miss hands if you only had wings? You miss hands a bit.
True, actually, I wouldn't be able to wank.
Well, you could feather.
I could actually feather.
You could feather.
Just like maybe that actually might be better.
Yeah, it seems like even when I said it, I kind of got a little bit of a shiver. I was like, ooh, feathering sounds nice.
Monsterful sex toy coming soon. It's going to be a stick with a lot of feathers strapped to it.
A stick with a load of feathers strapped to it to make your fucking raunchy nights in even better.
Yeah, and it'll have the Monster Fuzz logo on the bamboo. It'll be a bamboo cane. So yeah, it doubles as like, you can give someone a fucking whip with it or some shit. But what are we even talking about anymore? Oh yeah,
I don't know. You're
has eagle. All right, okay. So yeah, we've established what we're turning into. Then
degenerates.
So basically you turn into whatever you like, and then you wear the skins of the animal, and that's what you transform into, right? So that's where Skinwalker comes from. You have to adorn the skin to turn into it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they also wore the animal skulls or antlers atop their heads, which brought them more power. So
more power.
So yeah, if you put your, if you put your fox head on top of you, then you're going to be like super fox.
I like almost have a fox head because I have big red head of hair on me, so it's like I'm wearing a fox all the time.
Very true, yes. They choose what animal they wanted to turn into, depending on the abilities they needed for the particular task. If they wanted speed, strength, endurance, stealth, claws, or whatever, they could turn into something that did that. They may transform again if they're trying to escape from pursuers. Because of this, Navajo considered it taboo for its members to wear the pelt of any predatory animal. However, sheepskin, leather, and buckskin are acceptable. Yes, that's really interesting that, like, they, in the face of maybe adversity, in the face of maybe times when things were hard for the tribe, where, maybe it was easier to get, say, a predator skin, they only resorted to, like, benign creatures like, sheep, cows. Now, buckskin is a sort of up for interpretation because bucks are, they can be sort of, I suppose, a little bit scary, but
yeah, I think it's carnivorous animals that they probably say, look, don't be wearing the old meat eater's maw on you,
This is very true. They're also able to take possession of the bodies of human victims if a person locks eyes with them. After taking control, the witch can make its victims do and say things that they wouldn't otherwise. It's kind of how sometimes when I say poems, I'm just taken away to a different place.
Yeah, every time you do a poem, I go into like this, I don't know what, it's like a transcendent feeling where you connect with the energies of the world and the words just come through you. And more often than not, they tend to rhyme with penis or dick or willy. Hog was another one. So yeah, that's...
Yeah, so it's good. It's a good experience. But once they shapeshifted, one way others could tell that they were not a real animal is that their eyes were very different than those of an animal. Instead, the eyes were very human, and when light shined on them, they turned bright red. So, alternatively, when they're in human form, their eyes look more like animals. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Davy the Snail. He has he has snail eyes, and that's how we're able to really tell. Actually, Gordo told me an anecdote about he actually got in a fight with Davy the Snail. So this is a monster.
And he was down at the taxi office, was it?
Yeah, I think so. This is a Monster Fuzz exclusive.
Oh my gosh.
Gordo of those conspiracy guys kicked Davy the Snail out of the door, and Davy the Snail had soiled underpants at the time. To which I responded to Gordo, well, you're never going to win a fight with soiled underpants. Like, if you're going into a fight with a shitty knickers, you're going to get bet up.
That's one good way of putting it, yeah.
Well, sure, like, think about it. Like, you're never going to ride into battle with shitty underpants, are you?
Nah, because you're already feeling a bit ashamed before even the first dig gets thrown, you know?
You're getting punched and you're like, oh, this is not
and
like,
like,
getting punched, and
you know,
I have shitty underpants.
Yeah, but you know the way people say, I'm going to kick the shit out of you? You'd be like, too late, I'm already after shitting myself. You know what?
Well, one thing to do is you could take your underpants off and sort of swing them around your head and whip them at people and things like that.
Yeah, I definitely, if I was about to fight a guy and then he just started coming at me with shit, I'd probably be like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah. Gordo, however, like a true knight and champion, kicked Davy the Snail and sent him back to his, what do they call a snail's shell? Is it a carapace? Is that it?
I'm not sure, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, okay, so anyway, where did the evil society of witches, where do they hide out, Eamon? We know what to do, but where do they hide out?
Yeah, so the evil society of witches gather in dark caves or secluded places for several reasons. Some of the reasons are to initiate new members, to plot their activities. You can just imagine all these fellas dressed as fucking bears sitting around a big desk. I think we should go after the Cherokee next. Harm people from a distance with black magic, perform dark ceremonial rites. The ceremonies are kind of similar to tribal affairs. So you have your dancing, the feasts, that kind of sort of more normal kind of ceremony activity that you'd have. Then they'd have sand painting, they'd have rituals, but the sand paintings and all that sort of stuff would be corrupted with dark connotations.
Like a modern day rave.
Yeah, kind of like a modern day rave where the art, it's I tell you what it's exactly like, right? You know the way you see like really deadly graffiti every now and then. So in Dublin, there's some really great graffiti on the walls, you know, which are really great looking. And then the next day, someone's just crudely spray painted a knob onto it. Yeah, and you're like, that used to be really cool. That was you, right? That's
what I do. I spend my nights driving around looking for cool graffiti and then spray paint knobs on it.
Are you the fella who wrote Mickey Doyle wanks dogs in that alley by TK Maxx?
I wish I was. To be quite honest. I wish I was.
Lofty heights, Loftus heights. So while all this stuff is going on, that's kind of like, you know, bits of the ritual and blah blah blah. The stuff that's really messed up. So this is where it gets kind of like, I assume people don't let their kids listen to this because we're constantly cursing.
Yeah, definitely don't listen to make your kids.
That's crazy.
I'd imagine like the unfortunate thing is that kids are often interested in cryptids, but we're idiots. So like that's the I did think about this. It did cross my mind because when I used to do YouTube, a lot of my stuff was like PG, you know, and then I realized that this could absolutely never be PG, and it would actually ruin the podcast. So
it'd be rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be terrible. It'd be like,
what would I be if I didn't have Mickey references?
Man, what would either of us be? Like, it'd just be such a waste, such a boring time. You know, like there's a truth. There's a truth about talking about Mickeys and all. There's something in our blood. Like, why is it that people draw Mickeys on walls? I think it's just like air, you know?
True.
Anyway, this next bit is pretty messed up. Yeah. So these people, as they're kind of doing these rituals and rites for skinwalking, they're said to engage in necrophilia with female corpses. Okay. They commit cannibalism, incest, and grave robberies. So basically transgress in all the ways you're not supposed to against social norms
and have fun doing it, basically, right?
Sounds like they're having a great time. Right. It's pretty grim though.
It's more, well, it's worth, right, it's obviously grim, 100%, but it's worth entertaining why these people enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean? And like why
Mhm.
it was, or like what was normal to these cunts if that's what they enjoyed. Do you know what I mean? Like if everything was reversed for them, it's just an interesting thing to sort of. I don't like it's so it must be so hard to view the world through their goggles is what I'm trying to say. It's
Yeah, yeah. I think I get you. If you've decided to completely go against
yeah.
your
Like how
society,
does that
you
feel? Like
find,
it does it
mm,
if you're
well,
comfortable with that.
yeah, you would have to, in the kind of there's, what would you say? There's a dark and sick purity to it, I suppose, if that makes sense. It's the wrong thing to do. And I think I mean, when you're doing stuff that fucked up, I suppose there's a level of freedom to it that you don't get with, like, there's no restrictions on these people, but obviously they're not going to have compassionate relationships, and some of the light side, if you like. If you think of the Jedi,
Yeah.
the Jedi, the light side, compassion, empathy, all that sort of stuff. You have these people who are riding fucking corpses and eating people and stuff like that. So both ways give you freedom, but one obviously gives you freedom and darkness. You don't contribute to anything. You tear down the fabric rather than contributing to it.
Yeah, and are they like as well sort of just gone a bit mad from eating human flesh? Because doesn't that happen? There's that brain-eating virus that you get
Oh,
from
yeah.
eating
Well,
human flesh.
and this probably ties in. There's some similarities with the Wendigo and the Skinwalker as well, especially with the cannibalism stuff, the transgression, what they turn into afterwards. I believe there was stuff in the Wendigo episode that it could mimic your voice.
Yeah.
And like, or someone who was close to you, so
Yeah.
you could trick you into luring you in, and I think Skinwalkers are probably similar. And what it is as well, I think, is that it's almost it's telling you to beware of people who look like they're okay. Because
Yeah.
the Skinwalker saying you can shapeshift into this, that, and the other, but also come back. And I think it's probably people understanding that an evil person doesn't always look like an evil person.
Yeah, this
You
is
know what
true.
I mean? So maybe it's some trying to say, look, there are bad people out there, and you have to be careful. You have to be prepared. You have to respect. You have to respect the dangerous people because they could kill you.
Yeah, they're a bit try-hard as well, though. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd probably be more afraid of the lad who, like, when he's walking downtown, takes a bite out of someone's arm and just keeps on going and then goes down and has a play somewhere or whatever, does his daily stuff, rather than people who are like, oh, we do all sorts of evil stuff. We do everything fucked up we do. That's great. Like, I'd be more worried about someone who's sort of in the middle evil, I think, rather than the
I get you. You sort of hate to be stuck beside one of these fuckers at a party where they're just going,
really annoying,
and another thing that the Skinwalkers do, and actually the Church of Skinwalkers, and no matter what you say, they'll get it back to being about them and being Skinwalkers.
It's those guys that like are tattooed head to toe and their eyeballs are tattooed and they have like dermal implants and holes in their ears and all, and you're like, all right, man, yeah, we get it. Like, yeah, we understand.
We get it. You're different. You're outside. We get it.
Well, it's not a personality trait to look like that. So, like, it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like, you can't just keep going on about, oh yeah, I have loads of tattoos. You're like, oh yeah. Cool.
Ultimately, your actions have to carry the weight. You can't just fucking make yourself look like. And there's nothing wrong with fucking tattooing your face.
Well, there is, but yeah, grand, yeah.
Right.
Well, there is, yeah.
But I mean,
you're all soy boy. You sit on the fence and all, but
It's also on the fence. I just don't judge
on the
people.
Fence.
Like
your arse must be sore sitting up on that fence.
It's a comfortable old fence. I think that people should be judged on their merits. If you want to tattoo your face,
no, hang on. So sorry, I'll go the other side. If you're tattooing your face, you want to be judged a certain way, like to that extreme.
Yeah, but I've never tattooed my face, so I don't know what. I don't have any tattoos at all, so I don't know.
You can't get tattoos to come out to the fucking fence in the middle of the field, like.
I can. I'm gonna get a tattoo on my face that just says "fence sitter for life."
No, look. What I'm talking about here is I actually don't even mind face tattoos that are like do you know, like some rappers have, like, I don't even, some of those lads, I don't even notice the tattoos. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, grand, they look kind of cool, whatever. I'm talking about like 99% of your skin tattooed almost. Like, that's what I'm referring to. I'm referring to like the extreme of the extreme. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I think as long as you just don't talk about how your skin is 99% tattooed all the time, then
But
it's
you know
if you're
what
like
they're going
if
for.
you're full of
But you
I
know
do,
what
yeah,
they're
I
going
get
for.
what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
You just know that. You know that. Eamon O'Neill is going to run as a politician soon because he's so in the middle.
I doubt that this podcast is going to do my election campaign any good.
Well, you talked
whatever.
about Mickey's on all these times, and what else have you thought?
I dream of a world where the Mickeys are free to roam around the land.
Yeah, I'd be in some type of like far one side party. I wouldn't say far right though, but I'd definitely be in some type of party that causes a lot of reactions anyway. I'd definitely be in some type of reactionary
You'd
party.
be like the troll party.
Yeah, something like that kind of thing. Yeah, that'd suit me. Something that pisses people off. Yeah, it'd be definitely fun. Anyway, where are we, Em? And we're digressing.
So during these gatherings where they're having necrophilia, cannibalism, incest, grave robberies, the skinwalkers shapeshift into their animal forms or go around naked, wearing only beaded jewelry and ceremonial paint. The leader of the skinwalkers is usually an old man who is
like
a very
Electric Picnic.
powerful. And it does sound like Electric Picnic, except it sounds like Electric Picnic, except it's like a death metal Electric Picnic where every band is death metal. Like,
True, very true.
So why don't you tell us what these young fellas do be getting up to when they've done the ritual and all that sort of messing?
Well, Jesus, there's a lot. So those who have talked of their encounters with these evil beings describe a number of ways to know if a skinwalker is near. They make sounds around homes, such as knocking on windows, banging on walls, scraping noises on the roof. On some occasions, they have been spied peering through windows. So all sorts of devilment, really. More often, they appear in front of vehicles in hopes of causing a serious accident. Do you know that's something I'm really paranoid of? Like, do you ever get that when you're driving along and you see a person and you're like, oof, they move too close to the car or they jerk out accidentally? It's fucking freaky. I can only imagine.
I always think
someone.
If we're driving through, like where Carrick Forest is, if we're driving back and the headlights are on, I always think about something jumping down from the trees, like some sort of weird fucking, I don't know, weird cryptidy looking thing, like and it always makes me bum a little bit flappy.
There's flappy bum, squeaky bum. There was a time. Monster Fuzz exclusive story here where we had a very heavy storm, hurricane force winds, I think was basically what it was, and it was Ophelia was the name, Storm Ophelia, and me like an idiot and a friend of mine decided to go storm chasing basically in my dumbass like car that is not suited for anything like that. We drove around and it was serious. There was plenty of trees upended on roads and all this type of stuff. And in Ireland as well, like I think in certain countries, like this isn't as big of a problem, but in rural Ireland, like the roads are covered in trees, like it's trees on each side of the hedge, on the ditches, And I drove down this road. It was pitch black, middle of the night, and there was trees down, full trees. Like I'm talking big, old trees in the middle of the road. I was driving around them on the other side of the road, and I had this, like you were saying, terrible fear of a tree coming down on the roof. It was like being on a fucking roller coaster. No joke. I was shitting my pants. And suffice it to say, I won't be driving through storms ever again.
You learned your lesson.
I think it was a bad idea. But so in addition to all that, and in addition to being able to shapeshift, the skinwalker is also able to control the creatures of the night, such as wolves and owls, and to make them do its bidding. Some are able to call up the spirits of the dead and reanimate the corpses to attack their enemies. Because of this, the Indians rarely ventured out alone. Do you think perhaps, Eamon, that the skinwalker sort of idea was a way to justify some animals that are like good 90% of the time or 70% of the time, some of their bad behaviors?
Yeah, like when you can't, like I think, isn't it black labs? Sometimes they just fucking go crazy and like start biting everybody, just whatever way it's in their genes or whatever. Yeah,
that type of thing. Like,
yeah, I think it could be, and it could, like you're kind of saying. I suppose if we think that, I think dogs have been domesticated for about 40,000 years, or that's when we started to domesticate them.
Right.
So potentially at this point, I don't know how long ago. Like, I don't know how long ago, because obviously America, they find it in the fucking 15th century or whatever. But I don't know how long Native Americans would have been sort of trying to capture and domesticate wolves before then. So potentially it was part of that process of domesticating wolves. The wolves would occasionally just fucking spaz out and attack you, you know?
Yeah, maybe like the tribesmen at the time would have said, "Oh, this one's a skinwalker. This is a bad one. This has like the tendency to bite and snap. So let's get rid of that guy."
Yeah, and kind of say that it had the spirit of a transgressed person.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They get into that kind of what the allegory is for the animal. Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
Yeah, they're said to run faster than a car and they have the ability to jump high cliffs. They're extremely fast, agile, impossible to catch, and leave tracks that are larger than those of any animal. When they have been seen, they have been described as not quite human and not fully animal. They are usually naked, but some have reported seeing the creature wearing tattered shirts or jeans. So yeah, think of like a hipster basically going around in a flannel shirt with like ripped jeans. That's kind of what a skinwalker looks like.
Fucking teen wolf.
Yeah. The skinwalker kills out of greed, anger, envy, spite, or revenge. It also robs graves for personal wealth and to collect much needed ingredients for use in black magic. These witches live on the unexpired lives of their victims, and they must continually kill or perish themselves. So yeah, it's like a video game basically where your health is degrading constantly, right?
Yeah, like a vampire game. You got to keep drinking the blood or whatever.
Yeah. They're also blamed for all manner of natural disasters like droughts, storms, wildfires. It's all Skinwalker blamed. And again, some similarities with the Wendigo. The Skinwalker must keep killing to live. The Wendigo can never be sated, no matter how much it is. Once you have transgressed, you can't turn back. It seems like an allegory for transgression against the tribe. Once you have gone down a certain road, there is no turning back, no redemption. But yeah, that could be encouraging for some mentalists, you know? Like,
yeah, it's funny that you say that.
Yeah, I can see the appeal for some people that don't like their tribe or just want a different way of life. Like maybe the Skinwalker, because they kind of sell being a Skinwalker a little bit, right?
Well, I suppose if you're cool with killing people, then being a Skinwalker is probably a no-brainer, right? Like if you're going to kill people anyway, yeah.
If you went downtown and did a fucking survey on some people and said, would you turn into a wolf, you can kill someone, there'd probably a lot of people that say yes.
Yeah, but they'd be all fucking mad lads.
Yeah,
but I know what you mean.
That's my point.
Counterculturalists. Well, it's the same way that you have like, say, like the Manson murders.
Yeah.
They're effectively a load of people who, under different circumstances, potentially would have bought into the Skinwalker mythos if it was just some Native American black witch rather than Charlie Manson that had encouraged that and fucking spliced him up with LSD or whatever and got him on board. But yeah, I think you're right. Some people who are that counterculture and that angry at society and want to tear it down. You know, you could see the Joker from the Christopher Nolan movie,
being a Skinwalker.
You know, under a different circumstance being something like this, yeah.
There's a good crossover comic there. We've just given you an idea. So you can give us some money basically and we're happy enough, right?
Yeah, Detective Comics. If you want to get in touch with us, me and Rob will write that. It was 6-issue arc. I think we would probably like to have maybe Alex Maleev draw it. Maybe we might get, who else would like Jim Lee, someone like that
Jim
to draw
Lee,
the comic book. Yeah, we'll get some Jim Lee.
Yeah.
Jim Lee, and he'd do some like Native American Batman stuff. We might take some direction from Grant Morrison. It'll be great fun. Come on, DC, holla at your boys.
Yeah, so do you want to tell people about the Navajo Witch Purge of 1878?
Yeah, so this is an interesting kind of a thing where the Navajos basically tried to find the witches. This is similar to your Salem stuff, and actually the year, I believe, was the Salem stuff around the 18.
No idea.
I can't remember.
I'm not too familiar on Salem, to be quite honest.
I think during the famine in Ireland, there was part of the changeling stuff happened around this time as well. But anyway, like we said before, things happen at the same time around the world, the cultural consciousness and all that sort of stuff. But basically, after a series of wars with the US Army, the Navajo were expelled from their land and forced to march to the Bosque Redondo, like Fort Sumner in New Mexico, in what is now known as the Long Walk of the Navajo in 1864. Now, when they got there, the people were suffering from, bad water, failed crops, illness and death. reducing their numbers dramatically. After 4 years, the government finally admitted that they had made a mistake, and the Navajo were allowed to return to their homeland in the Four Corners area. But during these years, many of the tribe's members were said to have turned to shapeshifting to escape these terrible conditions. Again, some stuff here, as we talked about, starvation, the Wendigo, and eating human flesh. A lot of people, I don't think they wanted to cannibalize other people, but they were driven to it because of the environment at times. In the meantime, the rest of the tribe were convinced that their gods had deserted them. So again, similar to Salem here, accusation of witchcraft and the hunting of the skinwalkers begin shortly after this. So someone finds a collection of witch artifacts wrapped in a copy of the Treaty of 1868, and the tribal members unleashed deadly consequences. The Navajo witch purge occurred around 1878, and 40 Navajo suspected witches were killed in order to restore harmony and balance to the tribe. I would imagine this is 1878. I don't know if they got harmony shortly after that. I'd say there's a few more bad days to come, but and I don't know much about the Navajo in present.
I think they're still gone. Yeah, I think the Navajo are still chilling. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think they are.
I think they've endured, in spite of all the hardships that the natives have had to suffer, which is terrible atrocities across the board. Wouldn't that be an interesting thought? Like, imagine, the English and stuff had never gone to America, and Christopher Columbus and all those guys. It'd be very interesting culture now to see what, like, America would be like, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I wonder. You'd kind of wonder, because, obviously you have the age of the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, like this, all the stuff that's kind of coming from Europe, and obviously Europeans are the ones that wind up sort of going into America first. But it would be interesting because Europe sort of spread a lot of that stuff over there. But then you had in the Middle East, like they were far, far more advanced than Europe at a certain point. I think it was the Kublai Khan that basically destroyed the gardens of Babylonia and all that sort of stuff, isn't it? Or the libraries of Alexandria, actually. Sorry, yeah.
And they lost basically all their knowledge and all their stuff.
They said that the water ran red with blood and black with ink, but basically just destroyed a culture, which is so yeah, totally. I think it'd be really interesting. Even there's some people that say, maybe we do an episode on this sometime, that the history of the Egyptians is totally wrong, and it was basically sort of a 0 year where wiped everybody out or stopped the civilization, but that they were actually much more advanced than we are now in some ways in what they had. But again, look, it's there's lots of stuff like that, but you're totally right. It would be interesting to see what way they developed and evolved if they had been left alone.
Yeah, I know. We'll definitely touch on Egyptian stuff. I'd love to do that. But yeah, no, I mean, Native Americans or First Nation people are actually descendants of Chinese people. So perhaps some cultural similarities would have happened had they have been allowed to evolve freely. It's hard to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or would it have been more of a tribal type of landscape, kind of like how Africa is?
Yeah, you see, it's hard to know because when you think about it, effectively you go back to start, we were all amoeba, so like just single-celled organisms, and now I'm talking to you through a microphone in Dublin, and you're in Wexford, and we're sharing a document with pictures of fucking weird stuff on it. Do you know what I mean? So like how culture could have morphed. And imagine if like capitalism didn't win, or World War II wasn't won by the Allies, or do you know what I mean? Who knows what way culture would have gone, and what we would believe would be the right or wrong way to act, or do you know what I mean? It's just really interesting food for thought sometimes.
Yeah, it's worth contemplating. But so all of that stuff was really older stuff, wasn't it? So we're in the 19th century now, and what's actually happening with the Skinwalkers? I suppose a lot of the modern stories were kind of weird-person based, and there also seems to be some discrepancy when reconciling Skinwalker folklore to modern-day accounts. We have an image here, which is basically of a grey humanoid, more sort of very, very human length. It looks like a character of the Doom.
Yeah.
And it's reported to be a Skinwalker, Wendigo, and a Dover Demon.
Yeah, I've seen it on basically when I'm doing some research, I've seen this on forums for Wendigo, Skinwalker, and Dover Demon. Now, to be honest, I would say it's that the name of this cryptid is Photoshop.
Yeah, it looks really dodge.
Yeah, so like it's a pretty cool image all the same.
Yeah.
Like it is pretty spooky. Now, so they say it's the Wendigo or the Skinwalker. I see how those might be able to overlap, but I don't see the Dover Demon because my understanding is the Dover Demon is a little sweetheart, and I think he was a lovely little cryptid.
Yeah, he was nice. Even though he suplexed you, he was all right.
Yeah, but like it's like any fight. Afterwards, there's respect between the fighters. You know what I mean? You have respect, and you're like, yeah, that's all right, man. We'll roll it back someday. Run it back. So it's going to be Eamon O'Neill versus the Dover Demon 2 on UFC 268
Oh, that sounds good.
next year. We're in talks with Dana White. He's been seeing how much views we're getting. He's like, "Whoa, you fucking guys got 3 fucking Patreons? You fucking kidding me? This is unreal, man. UFC doesn't understand how the fuck you're marketing this shit. We want to get you on here. Eamon, the Dover Demon's been calling you out for fucking days, man. You know what I say? A fight's a fight, man." I was like, "Yeah, Dana, grand. I'll get you again." So yeah, that's something to look forward to next year.
That is a very I'm very excited for that one, to be fair. So we have a big ass long ass Reddit story here. It's a juicy story, so I suggest that we tackle it paragraph by paragraph each.
Okay.
For the sake of our lungs, I think is probably the best way to do it. So I'll start, I suppose. So this is a story from a user on Reddit. Where did you take this from? Do you know?
No, I think I just fired in Reddit fucking or Skinwalker and read what was there.
So I've always wanted to share this story. I've only told a few people just because I knew nobody would probably believe me. And to be honest, it took a few years for me to come to terms with what I saw, and I still stand by it. When I was 19, I'm 31 now, I lost my job at a Coca-Cola plant in Deming and New Mexico, I suppose. Born and lived till I was 24. My brother asked if I would be interested in working at the mines in Morenci, Arizona. He had been there for a month already with a friend. They lived in an RV park at Clifton, Arizona, and the mine wasn't far from where they lived. I jumped at the chance to get out. We're on a different paragraph here. Go for them. It was kind of compressed.
Yeah, that's all right. I jumped at the chance to get out of my boring ass town, and in about 3 weeks, I had myself a job there. I would stay with my brother and his friend in the RV, and on weekends we would drive back to Deming to visit family, etc. The RV park we stayed at was actually pretty interesting. On one side, there was like a wall, where on the bottom was like a gorge, where it would venture off into streams through the town, and on the other, a huge cliff. At night, the way the moon hit, it looked like something out of a painting. The courtyard was huge, all the RVs wrapped around it.
Oh. Where we were parked to get to the showers and rec room was just a straight 200 feet walk, majority through the big-ass courtyard. The thing did suck. There was the javelinas. Sometimes, what the fuck is a javelina?
No idea.
The thing that did suck there was the javelin. People probably know what that is. Sometimes after taking a shower, you would have to haul ass back to your RV or wait in the rec room for them to leave outside. They would sometimes be wandering in the park. I remember one time my brother and friend thought it would be funny to chase a javelina family off with bats. It was pretty hilarious until they got chased back.
Yeah, so I'm assuming these are sort of coyote type things. So one night after dinner, I decided to go outside and listen to music. I remember we had a picnic type bench that faced towards the courtyard. I'm sitting there with my headphones in, bumping SOAD, which is System of a Down, when I saw something coming into the courtyard. I thought it was a cat at first. It moved like one, but the body was longer. Then I saw the longer ears and was like, oh, maybe it's a dog. I'm watching it kind of move through the area, but it's already dark, so I can't see it perfectly. My headphones are still blaring. I decide to get up off the bench and get its attention. I do that thing where you click your mouth to get a dog's attention, and I see the ears go up when it hears me. I'm kind of standing by my RV door, and the table's still, and I see the thing start to come towards me, but I see it's crouching and moving quick. I'll never forget that. There I am smacking my tongue at it like an idiot, and this thing is moving like a snake.
It got maybe 80 feet before all of a sudden it must have heard something in the distance because it stopped and its head kind of cocked and decided to run off towards the cliffs. Here's the thing I'll never forget. When it ran off, it stood up. It looked like a very skinny boy. Had it been wearing a fur, cause when it ran off, the skin was dangling but still attached to its head. It was so fast and strange, I just sort of stood there like, huh? I really had to stand there and let my brain process and try to process what I saw.
I told my brother and his friend. Of course, they didn't believe me. My brother said he's probably somebody's dog, but that still didn't explain the boy. I told my mom. She's seen some crazy stuff in her time, but nothing like what I told her. I never saw anything like that at the RV park again. I still see javelinas wandering about, but that's it. I worked for another few weeks, but got laid off and went back to Deming. I honestly don't know too much about skinwalkers, but I know that what I saw wasn't in the realm of normal.
Perhaps a little thing that jumped into my head as we were reading. Was it a chupacabra?
Could have been.
Javelinas, by the way, are pigs, Eamon.
Yeah, I was just searching for it there.
I searched it and
right,
it said another term for peccary. And I'm like, what the fuck is a peccary? And then I had to search for peccary. Yeah.
So yeah, they probably look like kind of like wild boars.
Yeah.
They have pretty sharp teeth, actually.
Yeah.
But, so I can see how that could be difficult.
It could be a chupacabra hanging around there, huh?
El Chupa. Do you know what I miss? Remember in your room when we used to draw on the walls? We had I drew a picture of a Chupacabra trying to get a green card.
I do remember that, actually. Yeah.
He had like a little passport up and stuff like that.
Yeah. The great tragedy. So for our listeners, I had my old bedroom in my house was like, everyone used to come in and out as they do when you're like 18. You have fucking everyone's like buzzing around. We were fairly fortunate to have a big group of friends, so there was always people around.
Yeah.
And as a little project, I at the time just got everyone to sign the wall. Everyone that came in with a permanent marker signed the wall, and it was like the wall was covered in signatures, and then every other wall was artwork. So Eamon did actually most of the artwork. He was good at drawing, so I was like, yeah, have at it. And he had a portrait of me playing Guitar Hero. Actually, was another one.
Oh, that was good actually. The portrait of you playing Guitar Hero.
That's why I remember it. Yeah, and. Yeah, so it was just a cool thing, but we had Chupacabra was actually on the wall, and one of my biggest regrets was never photographing all the walls because they're gone forever now. They've since been painted over, so...
sure, look. I'm sure if we get some sort of good science thing light, maybe it can show all the residue.
Yeah, that's very true. So we're on a new story now, and I'll start this one's only a paragraph long.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you can go with the whole thing here. Right, this is all yours.
I'll start by saying I'm from New Mexico, born and raised in Farmington to be exact. So growing up, I heard stories but didn't believe in them whatsoever. I have a grandfather that is called a roadman, right? He travels around the Four Corners area praying for people. So the Native American church has always been a part of my life growing. So most of what I heard was from kids I would meet at peyote meetings.
Yikes. That's like the spiritual... So, okay.
The stuff they would tell me seemed more like stories to scare kids. But anyways, my first experience happened at my grandparents' house. Their place was located in Upper Fruitland, about 15 minutes outside of Farmington, but on the reservation. I spent the night because my cousins were living there at that point in time. It was a pretty casual night, just us being kids. We were up pretty late playing games on N64. Great. Sounds like a great night, to be honest with you.
Sounds like a fun night.
Yeah. Not even knowing I was about to have the shit scared out of me, lol. Not literally though, haha. But I remember we started to burn out, so we decided to watch TV in the living room. I'd say it was after 2 a.m. because close to 3, Scooby-Doo was coming up next on Boomerang. But I'm sitting on the couch looking at the TV, and next I seen someone standing in front of which window they had. So where this thing is standing, it cast a perfect shadow. The shadow from it was perfect because the way the porch light was set up, you could see the outline perfect. Right? That was that one?
Oh, no, you have more there.
Oh, all right. I was wondering, I was like, is that another? Ears from what it had over its head, a pointy snout like a dog or something. As this thing hunched over, looking as if it were trying to peer inside the window, you could see a necklace dangle from the neck. The necklace had sharp, pointy teeth, and the outline of the person's face I'll never forget. All this from the shadow it casted outside of the window, though. I noped the fuck out real quick. My cousins both came in running behind, like, what the fuck did you run for? I explained to them what I saw. all while my knees were shaking and me trying not to cry in front of them. After that experience, though, I believe in them. I know that they are real, and fuck if nobody believes me, I'll never forget how that made me feel.
No.
So now, do you have a great encounter?
Well, I don't know about that. I have one here. I live near the Navajo reservation in New Mexico, and good friends with quite a few natives. It's taboo to speak of the Skinwalker. More often than not, you will just hear them being referred to as witches. One of my friend's dads was a tribal police, and he told me a story about an old jail on the old reservation in Santa Ana. In the early 1900s, there were kids getting sick and elderly dying, and the tribe knew it was a witch, so they went looking for him and found him in the woods. They actually caught an old dirty man who was surprisingly strong. They brought him to the jail. They had put him in his own section, and over the years he was forgotten about, until the 80s, when they were moving everything to a new jail, and they found his bones and curses carved into the wall. Now to the part my friend's dad had a personal experience. As a tribal officer, he would often deal with the unruly people, and they would take these guys to the old jail and lock the witches in a cell. He told me that they would be there for 20 minutes at a maximum before begging to talk and get out of the cell. And the rest of that seems to have just disappeared. So that's not a good story at all. That's a really bad story.
Yeah, the Skinwalker stories are a bit shite.
The Skinwalker stories do sound like a kid who's just watched Are You Afraid of the Dark and just like jumped onto fucking skinwalker4s.com and is just like firing down what he can.
But why don't you tell us about the Monarch of the Gonks?
Oh, the Monarch of the Gonks, right. So we'll try to put this into the show notes. I'm just going to click onto it now, Rob, that link with the dog.
Yeah.
So this was basically on one of the Reddit when I searched for Skinwalkers. It's a really cute thing. It's a dog standing on his hind legs in water, and he's like just trying to walk, basically. But it's very cute, right? And someone has tagged this has got to be a Skinwalker, obviously making a joke, you know. So the runner-up for Monarch of the Gonks this week has replied to that and said, as someone who lives on the res, which is what they call it in the biz, in NW, New Mexico, I can tell you, I am offended by all these Skinwalker joke videos. Now, in all caps, he says, Skinwalkers are not a joke. They do not look like funny dogs in a pool. Just ask anybody who's really seen one. It's not funny. So he's the runner-up. Now, the true Monarch of the Gonks this week. This is brilliant. I did a ritual in order to summon a Skinwalker around a week ago. Nothing happened, though. Should I be worried for any reason? 220 people have voted back to say that he should be worried. So there you go. So I think the Monarch of the Gonks is just when you're doing research and obviously you're reading different comments and stuff, and you just find these funny comments that people have put down, or people getting affected by nothing. So that makes me laugh. And the dog video is actually very cute.
You roll your sleeves up and you do research. You go into all the shitty ass Reddit comments and all. I don't fucking touch them cunts with a barge ball. I can't be dealing with them. Like, they're hilarious, but like, I'm just like, no, can't be dealing. It's just so, Reddit for one is very addictive, and I love reading so much. What happens with me is I'll listen to the Monarch of the Gonks and it'll get mixed up with actual factual stuff in my head. And then
I get you.
And then I'm like, oh wait, that dog standing up in the pool was actually a real Skinwalker. Do you know what I mean? Like you really get. The lines become blurred. And I'm like,
yeah, I get you.
What have I read? What haven't I read? But it's very hard to find anything sort of credible on any cryptid. Really, you kind of have to really make your own mind up, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, especially, and look, Reddit is like the home of creepypasta.
Yeah. So, well, 4chan kind of started.
Oh, it was 4chan, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, look, you'd imagine that a lot of people just put stuff there for the crack.
Yeah. So what do you make of Skinwalker? Like, what's your sort of ideas from what you take from it?
My takeaway is, I reckon, like anything, there's good doctors and bad doctors, if you like. Like there's the Haitian zombies, I suppose. There's people who, would sort of do what you would call black magic. It's probably not too different in a certain way, but wasn't there a doctor here who carried out like 40 unnecessary hysterectomies and shit like that?
Yeah.
Just because he was like some sort of, again, I don't know, I would imagine he's some sort of misogynist or had a bit of a hang up about women. So like if that person, you know, it's the same kind of a thing. I think changing into an animal and all that is rather unlikely. But I think like all of these, like the Wendigo as well, it's more about transgressing against social norms, especially at a time when it was probably much easier to go and become a wild man or to renounce your civility. So I think that a lot of these act as a cautionary tale, you know, to
it's much kind of like the Wendigo. It's all that sort of be very careful. The fascinating thing about it is, I suppose, that in these cultures, witchcraft is like sort of a way of life, and that sort of spans across all cultures. But I suppose I don't really know where modern First Nation culture is now with things like the Skinwalker. Like with
no, I don't know myself. No.
So I'm curious to see if it's sort of a tale of the past at this point, or is it still relevant in some way, shape, or form?
Well, certainly if anybody is either part of a reservation or has some maybe Native American roots or just knows more about Native American history than myself or yourself, which to be fair wouldn't be very difficult. Do send us a line and just let us know. Maybe we can address it in a different episode, add it on to this one, you know, with a little bit of an update or something like that. But yeah, let us know, because we're definitely keen to, you know, it's great to, you know, have a couple of patrons asking us some questions here and there. But get in touch with us wherever you can, and you know, I'd be happy to kind of give some feedback. Or if anybody, I really, really, really want to hear some ghost stories. Please, guys, someone just send in a ghost story that we can read, because that'd really make my week.
Spooky times.
Yeah,
I think I don't really have a great takeaway from Skinwalkers other than it's really like it's a cool cryptid idea. It opens the door for us as a point of reference for a lot of the cryptids that will be coming down the pipeline, such as fucking Dog Man and all these dudes.
Because that's that one that I think we talked about it in the Tikbalong episode, which was my favorite like cryptid story about the walking dogs on the porch. So if you haven't heard that one, it's at kind of the start of the episode, folks, but it's a fun one. And hopefully by this time we should have a link to that episode. I will have hopefully looked and found it and sent it across. So I really like that stuff. I love that stuff where it's like animal human hybrids. I mean, the Dover Demon we were talking about, was it a failed alien human hybrid? So all that stuff is, you know, and the sorcery and the spiritualism behind it and the belief structure and everything. It's always very interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's about it, guys, from the Skinwalker. I hope you enjoyed another First Nation tale, our second. So it's kind of nice to go back to one and have it as another point of reference. Have you got anything to add, Eamon, before we wrap this biatch up?
No, not really. Just to reiterate, if you have any stories like ghosts or monsters, just please. I don't know why, man. I think something happened to me. I think it was dropped several times as a child. But I have this thing for like I used to watch Are You Afraid of the Dark on a Tuesday,
well, that was
and
brilliant,
just hang around with me ma for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Because I was scared. But I have something. I love hearing people tell me ghost stories, and I love it when, you know, when I know the person, I'm like, oh shit, like there's no, like I know this person isn't, whether this happened or not, I know it's not a lie. So I always fucking really dig that. So if anybody has any, I'd absolutely love to hear them, and I'd love if we can read them out on the show. But look, if you're not comfortable with that and you're just comfortable with passing on some information to us, cool, we'll read it and keep it to ourselves. But I'd be big into that.
Okay, right, so that about wraps it up. It's been fun, and I am Rob, and Eamon is here with me, and we're saying bye bye, folks.
See you later.
I'm Will Coleman, founder and CEO of Alto, and I built Alto to put an end to rideshare horror stories. You're used to the total lack of consistency in rideshare. Maybe it's a smelly car or a driver that asks just one too many personal questions. Not anymore. With Alto, you know exactly what to expect every ride. Every Alto driver is a trained Alto employee, and every Alto vehicle is part of our private fleet of luxury SUVs. Say goodbye to rideshare horror stories. Download the Alto app today and use code FOUNDER for $10 off your first ride.
I haven't really woken up until I've had my McDonald's breakfast deal. And I know this is true because before breakfast, I put my phone in the refrigerator and couldn't find the keys that were already in my hand.
Nothing gets the morning going like the first sip of an iced coffee. Get any size and any flavor for 99 cents until 11 a.m. Price and participation may vary.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. McDonald's. I'm loving it.